What's up everybody, Fritz here. In today's video, we're replacing another critical component of the N55 engine. And unfortunately, this piece is also made out of plastic and often gets overlooked because of its relatively small size and because it doesn't add to the overall performance of the engine. But let's face it, without it, this engine's reliability would be down to zero. So the only logical solution is to replace it with an all-metal version. Let's get into it. Yes, so BMW continues to put this plastic piece inside the engine bay of their cars. And this is not just an N55 thing or an N20 thing. This has been around for a long time and BMW knows about it. So I have no idea why they haven't at least upgraded this part to an aluminum one or a cast metal one, whatever they want to do to save costs, but please, not plastic, because it's shown over time that it doesn't work. But good thing for us that we have places like Turner Motorsports that make a kit with a metal flange as well as a replacement hose if you want to just change everything out. And if you're somebody like me who's at that 60 to 70,000 mile interval and you need to change your coolant anyways, you might as well do this piece of preventive maintenance with your routine maintenance. The N55 also gives us a cleaner access, hopefully, than the N20 engine, and therefore should leave us with less mess later on. So let's get right into it.
We'll be draining the coolant from the auxiliary radiator because it's much easier to manage than doing it at the thermostat or water pump. To access the auxiliary radiator, jack up the front driver's side and remove the wheel as well as the 10 8mm screws holding in the front portion of the wheel well liner, allowing you to unsecure and remove it. We'll also undo the 8mm holding in this corner of the splash guard. But be careful, as we have a sensor here that we need to disconnect. Align your drain catch before unhooking the retaining clip on our quick disconnect and then pull off the connection. As that drains, we can open up the coolant expansion tank to allow for laminar flow. If you have the carbon brace, you have to turn the 10mm and remove the push rivet holding in the cowl before removing the 13mm. Of course, we can't forget to secure the hood, and since we'll be replacing the bleeder screw, let's remove that before loosening the cap. Just make sure to remove the O-ring as well. We can also lower our jack a little to help more coolant come out. Just allow it to continue to drain as we work on other things, like the brass bleeder screw, helping eliminate another plastic piece. To get to the coolant flange, we need to remove the air box, which is held in by the 4 retaining clips, its sensor, and hose clamp. Next is the engine cover that pops right off. And lastly is the sensor that has an internal spring lock. Just press it in and pull off the sensor. Now we can get in our 10mm wrench and remove the 2 bolts holding in the flange. Because of the tight fit, having something with a higher tooth count will make this part much faster. With the moth, use a small pry bar to help remove the flange, which may come out in a few pieces. If so, use a pick tool to remove the pieces that got stuck and clean the area. The bottom section is held in by a hose clamp that can be loosened with a flathead screwdriver. But before we pull it off, let's move our drain pan just in case any more coolant comes out. By now, our auxiliary radiator should be done draining, so we can reconnect the hose and lock in the retaining clip. Clean up the mess, reattach the sensor, reinstall the splash guard, which is best to have in all the screws loosely before tightening them down. Followed by the wheel well liner, and of course your wheel, which gets torqued to 140 Newton meters in the star configuration. If you need to, lift up the car from the passenger side to reposition your catch. Then we can remove the hose. Side by side, we can see ECS did a great job of following the OEM design, right down to the sleeve. As you can see, with an aluminum design, we don't have to worry about this flange failing like the OEM one. Just look at how degraded the plastic is. In addition to an upgraded flange, we also have a silicone hose, which is more durable than regular rubber. The kit also includes some pretty flimsy clamps, so I upgraded them. But if you don't have clamps laying around, the ones supplied are still better than your original ones. In the installed position, looking at it from the front, the top clamp should be on the bottom, facing the driver's side, with the flange directly opposite of it. The flange slips on fairly easily, and the bottom clamp should be facing up and towards the front once installed. Also, leave everything loose for now. Double check your hose orientations before placing in the hose. Get it into place and address the top side first. Use some leftover coolant in the area to lube up the O-ring before pressing in the flange. Here you want to have a tight fit, as the O-ring will be what is primarily holding in the flange, so press it in good and test it before threading in the bolts. As soon as you feel the first bolt press against the flange, thread in the other bolt to evenly walk in the flange. Getting in a torque wrench in this area can be tough, so you can just use your ratcheting wrench and tighten with the weight of your index finger. Keeping in mind that this is a very low torque bolt that would require only about 14 Newton meters. Follow the hose down to insert it into the thermostat. This is also a tight fit, but once the hose is aligned, it goes right in, as does the hose clamp. Tighten it down with your screwdriver, then do the same at the top. Reattach the sensor by pressing in the spring lock, then pushing it in. Remove the catch, lower the car, then bring in the engine cover and airbox. Now let's fill a reservoir to the max line with 50/50 BMW Blue coolant and completely close the system afterwards. To purge the system of any air, put the car in accessory mode. Turn the heat all the way up with the fans at their slowest speed setting. Then step on the gas until you hear this sound. This may take up to 15 minutes, and you can see your coolant level drop. If it gets too low, you'll get a message. Go ahead and add some more coolant and purge again until your level is just under the fill line like this. You shouldn't need much more than a gallon of 50-50 mix depending on how much you drain. So one concentrated jug is more than enough to tackle this job. If you have the carbon brace, go ahead and throw it back on and torque those 13mm bolts to 28 Newton meters. And you'll want to start from the center and work your way out. Lastly, don't forget to remove your hood lock.
And just like that, we've beefed up the cooling system on your BMW. By upgrading the flange and the line, you've ensured that the common issue of these components breaking and leaving you stranded on the side of the road with an engine bay filled with coolant will never happen. And the best time to do this is to pair it with your next coolant flush. But if you are over that 100,000 mile mark, I would say you might want to do it a little bit sooner just to be safe. One more tip would be that if you want the most complete coolant flush, then you should pull from the water pump. Or if you prefer, since we're already pulling that line at the thermostat, you could just drain it from there. But I do have a couple mods incoming that might require me to drain some more coolant. So as much as possible, I don't want to mess with the thermostat and water pump because eventually they will need to be replaced. But if we can keep them going for as long as possible, why not try it out? And if you have any additional questions, please leave it for me in the comment section. All of today's resources will be down in the description. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. And I'll see all of you in the next one.